got a lot of apologies to make. Nothing's been the same since New York. You experience things, and then they're over. I can't sleep. And when I do, I have nightmares. Honestly, there's 100 people who want to kill me. I hope I can protect the one thing I can't live without.
Call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher. Lesson number 1. Heroes. There is no such thing.
Yeah, that trailer's all cool and all, but you have to remember, in the context of the movie, his house gets blown up because Tony lets his address out to all the bad guys on national television. And so they were all just like, okay, let's go ahead and just come to you and then destroy your house. I mean, that's one of the many, many problems that this movie has to attest to. But we will go through all that as we go along here. Welcome to Time About the Movies. We only have one movie to look at for May 3rd, 2013, and it is, of course, the biggest new release of the weekend, no question about it, because it's the movie that starts off the summer 2013 movie season, and needless to say, let this one kind of be the equivalent to Spider-Man 3 and Iron Man 2, where the summer movie season gets off on kind of a low note, because, yeah, this is not a very good month for movies, and we're going to show you why in just a little bit here. A lot of big, highly anticipated movies, very disappointing outcomes for most of them. We'll touch on the good ones too, but let's start off with Iron Man 3. Now, this one was a big deal because it's the first Marvel movie after the events of the Avengers. You know, the Avengers blew everybody's expectations away. Everything was high across the board on what people were expecting from Phase 2 of this. And, you know, Iron Man 3 comes out, and you get excited because Shane Black is coming to direct this one. You know, he and Robert Downey Jr. worked off each other with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang 8 years prior, made for a great movie. What was the end result of this? Let's go ahead and just delve into it here. You have brash but brilliant industrialist Tony Stark, Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., once again facing off against another villain, this time the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, whose reach knows no bounds. When Stark finds his personal world destroyed at his enemy's hands, he embarks on a harrowing quest to find those responsible. With his back against the wall, Stark is left to survive by his own devices, relying on his ingenuity and instincts to protect those closest to him. As he fights his way back, Stark discovers the answer to the question that has secretly haunted him. Does the man make the suit, or does the suit make the man? And I'll say this. Iron Man 3 really did well at the job it was supposed to do. It was an Iron Man adventure without the Avengers to help him. People really got upset about that because, you know, the Avengers weren't going to be involved in this movie overall. But if the Avengers were actually involved in this plot, then you can be honest, that you can be sure that this thing would be over in 10 minutes' time. But with all that said, though, this was kind of a major letdown in general. I mean, yeah, everyone was expecting a movie on the level of the Avengers. But then again, it shouldn't be on that level. It should try to be at least better than Iron Man 2. Because Iron Man 2 wasn't a bad movie, but it was definitely a been-there, done-that type of sequel. But, you know, this at least it managed to at least be better than that, sort of. But when the problems come into play here, the problems really do come into play here. And I'll touch on those in just a little bit here, but I do like that Shane Black puts his usual techniques in here. You see it taking place in Christmas time, and yeah. So this is, you're going to assume this takes place 6 months after the events of the Avengers. And the action sequences are very nicely done. You know, the centerpiece of the action sequences, the house explosion, which looks really good as the trailers make it out to be. It's a great scene that has a lot of tension, and just one of the more amazing set pieces of the film that proves its worthiness to be seen on a big screen. The comedy is actually really good here. It's incredible because the two trailers they used to promote this are nothing but the dark stuff. But, you know, there is a lot of dark movies that are going to use the darker elements, especially in the summertime. And yeah, we're going to see it with Star Trek 2. We're going to see it with Fast and Furious later in the month. Hangover, a comedy, is going to have darker elements to it for some reason. Yeah, like I said, this is a very, very bad month for films in general here, but... The characters are great as usual. Robert Downey Jr. is once again great as Iron Man. Don Cheadle and Gwyneth Paltrow, they're given much more character development in this, especially Paltrow, who's got a bigger role in this film. And even Jon Favreau gets a slightly bigger role than he did in the last two movies, mostly in the beginning of the film. But I also like that it wasn't long at all. Going just a little over 2 hours, the pacing was timed perfectly. I thought they did a pretty good job at it. I even like the callbacks they made at the beginning of the movie, where you see a flashback to Tony's past, and you see Jensen at one of the parties that he's at, and you know that's kind of cool to kind of bring it back full circle with a character that helped him get out of the situations he was in the first Iron Man movie. And then the movie falls apart with a couple of big things. One, the new characters are pretty lackluster. So you see in the trailer, it's Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. It starts out pretty cool. I actually did like the big twist that they had for him. The fact that, you know, Ben Kingsley wasn't really the Mandarin. He was just an actor pretending to be the Mandarin. I thought that was actually kind of a fun idea. You know, Oz the Great and Powerful kind of touched on a similar situation with, you know, Glinda the Good Witch kind of knowing that Oz was not really who he said he was. And, you know, I thought they were going to really do that overall in this movie. But then you realize that Guy Pearce's character is supposed to be the real Mandarin. And as much as I like Guy Pearce as an actor, I'm sorry, he was fucking pathetic. He is not a threat at all. He is nowhere near as threatening as the Mandarin, as Ben Kingsley was. You know, there's a joke on The Big Bang Theory once where Leonard told Penny that Sheldon Cooper is one scientific accident away from becoming a supervillain. Guy Pearce was Sheldon Cooper in this movie, and not in a good way. It's a movie that takes a twist that works and turns it into one of the most pointless and stupidest things ever. This thing really ruined the last 30 minutes of the movie for me. It really just took me out of it. Just kind of like, this is really the bad guy we're going to have to go with here. He's just another guy in a suit. He's Sam Rockwell all over again in Iron Man 2 and Jeff Bridges in the first Iron Man. Just like, come on, man. Like, this is so pathetic. He's the worst one of the bunch here, too. It's just like, he is so bland, he's so mundane, and he's just so pathetic. And his whole army, the extremists and all that, they're lame, too. And the ending is just such a massive, massive joke of an insult. I mean, it's not fun at all. It just ruins kind of the ebb and flow of the movie in general, and it really took me from liking the movie to really just kind of like going like, wow, I am almost on the cusp of hating this movie. I don't hate it, but it's real close. Like, this is probably, without a doubt, the more I think about it, worse than Iron Man 2 was. And, you know, I said at first I kind of liked it more than Iron Man 2. I did, up until we got to that last 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden, that last 30 minutes comes around and just kind of like, well, here we go again. It's just like, I'm sick and tired of it, man. Like, for a third Iron Man movie, you have to go bigger than that. Like, this is really, really pathetic of a villain that really ruins the ebb and flow of a movie. And I say it many times before in the past, like, a bad character, a bad storyline, a bad villain can really ruin your last 30 minutes if you're not, your third act, if you're not careful. Here's a prime example of that happening with this movie. So overall, I liked Iron Man 3. I don't like it as much as I did when I first came out of it. I would say that it's definitely the weakest of the Iron Man films. And, you know, the action can be good. The comedy can be really good. Most of the older characters are fun to watch. Shane Black's good script overall, does a good job, and direction propels it to a film that works on its own merits. But once that twist happens and they show who the real villain is and we get to the third act, it really ruins the flow to the point where you almost are guaranteed to want to pretend like never want to see this movie again. It took me a long time to really get back to this one because, yeah, I liked it at first, but I had no urge to watch it again. I've seen the original Iron Man multiple times before going back and watching the sequels again, getting ready for the show. But yeah, this movie really is not, this really is a film that's good, but really could have been a whole lot better, especially with Shane Black involved. And it's just one of the signs that Shane Black probably should stay away from these blockbuster caliber movies, because 5 years later he get another shot at it with The Predator, and that didn't work out very well. Hell, I just saw his latest movie, Play Dirty, with Mark Wahlberg and Lakeith Stanfield. Not a blockbuster, but even that one's not that great. Maybe he's losing his muster after all these years. I don't know. But he won't lose his muster with the next movie he'll make, The Nice Guys, which we'll get to in 2016, but... yeah, Iron Man 3, mixed bag, slightly a recommendation, but not really one I would say you're going to want to watch it as much as the other Iron Man movies. It's okay. It's kind of a major letdown, and yeah, especially after the Avengers, but hey, give it this. It's certainly going to be better than the next MCU movie we'll touch on in November, Thor: The Dark World.
I'm Gatsby.
Wish it could always be like this.
It will be. Wish I could have warned her it was all about to crash.
What kind of a row are you trying to cause in my house?
I heard it killed love. You want too much? This is a terrible mistake.
I just let myself go.
Welcome to Time About the Movies. Once again, no intro this week. We're just jumping into it because we only have a couple movies to look at for May 10th, 2013. And, of course, the biggest one that we have here is Baz Luhrmann's adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic novel, The Great Gatsby. This is definitely one of the more intriguing movies I've seen in my entire life because, on the one hand, there's a lot to trash about it because it's not really a film that really shows the true... how do I put this? Let's talk about Baz Luhrmann first. He is really one of those hotly divided directors when, there's movies that he makes that you either love them or you hate them. It's a matter of how you see them depending on whether or not you will like them or not. And me personally, I like what he did with Moulin Rouge, but most of his other stuff like Romeo and Juliet, Australia, Strictly Ballroom, Elvis, not so much. And this is one of those movies that I do like, but I will say it's one of those movies that's kind of odd to look at when you watch it the first time around and then you go back to it. And essentially, if you haven't heard the story of The Great Gatsby, it's about the life and times of millionaire Jay Gatsby, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and his neighbor Nick, played by Tobey Maguire, who recounts his encounter with Gatsby at the height of the Roaring '20s. And this is a movie where it really does get jumbled up right from the beginning, so much that I got confused the first time I saw it. I had no idea what the hell was going on because of how screwed up that first half of it was. And it's amazing how this is one of my favorite movies from that year. It was out solely because the editing is so insane in the first half. I mean, that may be the one thing I hate about Luhrmann's movies is that the editing is so off and all over the place. It gets really confusing at first, but there's stuff I like in the first half. Like, I love Joel Edgerton's character of Tom in this movie. Like, the first time that he sees Tobey Maguire and he calls him Shakespeare. Like, it's just, he's going with that fast pacing and all that. Just like, for some reason, that gets you hooked in. That gets you wanting to see the rest of this movie in general. It's just like, once we delve into the backstory of Jay Gatsby and find out who he really is, that's when the film really does start to come together overall. It reminded me a lot of Hugo, a movie that started off really slow in the beginning, but with no purpose or anything. But once they get to the actual plot, that's when the movie really does come into play here. And, Leonardo DiCaprio having a fantastic year in general, because he'll have this, and then later on in the year he'll have one of his greatest performances in The Wolf of Wall Street. But in this, he proves he's one of our finest actors working by capturing a true representation of who Jay Gatsby would be like on screen. Tobey Maguire also really comes into his own in this movie, and like I said, Joel Edgerton as Tom Buchanan is great. I love watching it because it really reminded me whenever he's on screen. You know how back in the day when Phil Hartman and John Lovitch were on Saturday Night Live and they used to talk like 40s gangsters all the time? I mean, one of the great sketches they ever do was when Phil Hartman's a World War II actor at this Hollywood studio run by John Lovitch, and he's telling him, you're out of the business, and it's this great banter between the two of them, which I think was just a sketch that was just made so they could just talk like 40s gangsters. It's just like, one of my favorite parts of it is at the end when John Lovitch is just like, I think you're the worst actor in the world, and I get 500 letters a day telling me the same, and Phil Hartman's just like, what's the word on the street? Like that's great stuff right there. If you haven't seen that sketch, definitely check it out. But when I see Joel Edgerton in this movie, that's what I think of when I see that, because it's just like, it's really, really good stuff here. Carey Mulligan's also really good in the movie, too. It's the first movie I've ever seen her in that I felt she was one of the stronger roles in it. Because she's been in a couple movies I didn't think were that great early on when I first saw it, but if there's any real flaws with the movie, it is the editing, which is probably one of the worst editing jobs I've ever seen for a movie. There's way too many abrupt cuts into the next scene, especially in the first act. It almost made me want to walk out because of how sloppy the editing was early on. Like, the movie itself was keeping me from walking out, and I could get past the shitty editing overall. I also like the stuff that didn't make a whole lot of sense. They don't explain why Caraway is inside of an insane asylum, and you think the movie's going to explain it, but they never do. They're just characters introduced for that, have no purpose there whatsoever, especially in the ending. Like, how does security for Gatsby and one of his servants not notice the guy with the shotgun at the front entrance in the house before he killed Gatsby? And they never explain it. It just basically says, like, even security is tired of Gatsby's ass at this point. It's just like, go ahead, man. Hey, why don't I accompany you to the best spot so you can go kill him? Like, I mean, yeah, it's one of those fascinating movies where it starts off really, really slow and all over the place and just like you wanted to slow down. But then once you get into the backstory of Gatsby and the conflicts that happen, that's when the movie really does come together overall. And it makes it work in the end. It's a movie that is definitely a very polarizing film, but it's one of the more fascinating films I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's one I go back to every once in a while. From the visual style to the music. The soundtrack is fantastic. One of the best soundtracks of the decade. And just, yeah, a great look overall. It's definitely my favorite Baz Luhrmann movie. And I love Moulin Rouge. I love, Cinema Paradiso. Did he do Cinema Paradiso? He did not do Cinema Paradiso. For some reason I thought he did, but no, that was Giuseppe Tortone. But that's still a great movie, too. You want to check that out. But this is my overall favorite Baz Luhrmann movie. The one I go back to every once in a while. It's just a really, really fun film. Starts off slow, but once we get to the second half, and it just really keeps going and just really becomes something very entertaining overall. So that is The Great Gatsby. So let's go ahead and move on to Tyler Perry Presents Peoples.
Yes.
That needs to be negotiated.
Dad,
Critics are raving Peoples is hysterical.
we can do this. We're a team.
I don't like him.
A great family comedy.
Time for men to test their manhood.
I'm a cold picture of red Kool-Aid with the smiley face on it.
It's the perfect Mother's Day weekend treat.
First one to get home wins.
I'm gonna win because I'm better than you.
Well, you really brought the family together.
Tyler Perry Presents Peoples, rated PG-13, directed by Tina Gordon Chisholm.
I should start off by saying that I said that this was Tyler Perry's Peoples, thinking that he was the one that directed this movie. But no, he did not direct this movie, nor did he write it either. He only has a producing credit on this, but even when he isn't directing a movie, it's not always going to be a success. I mean, look what happened with Alex Cross the fall before, but Wade Walker, played by Craig Robinson, may not be a blue blood, but he loves Grace, played by Kerry Washington, and he's eager to propose. Convinced that his best bet is to make his move with Grace's entire family is present, Wade boldly invites himself to a family reunion and does his best to make a good impression. Over the course of an eventful weekend, he learns that he may fit in better with a dysfunctional yet well-to-do clan than he could have ever anticipated. I mean, I'll give it this for Kerry Washington. It's certainly a better comedy than 1,000 Words, but it's got a good cast overall. Not only Robinson and Washington, but David Alan Grier, Essa Perka Murkison, Diane Carroll, Tyler James Williams, Callie Hawk, Anna Gasteyer. There is a lot of good talent in the movie in general, but other than that, though, it's pretty much Meet the Parents all over again. It's that same type of movie we've seen done to death before so many times, where the guy wants to get engaged to this woman, this person, so they join their family at a big gathering to see how to get everybody to know each other. And of course, the father's not going to like it, and they're going to go through these crazy shenanigans. And then by the end of it, they're going to be like, "Okay, you convinced me to let you marry my child." But yeah, that's the type of movie this is. And again, we've seen this done to death before so many times, and nothing new is brought to the table with this whatsoever. Nothing new at all. It's a lazy film. It's not a funny film. It's not even a film that really does a lot to really entertain people. It's just a movie that's there. And it's just like, there are so many other movies you could watch that are much better than this. And yeah, it would be better I would like if a better use of their actors overall would come into play here, but it's just not there, man. It's a movie, like I said, we've seen it done before so many times. It's just like, move on and do something else. Give us something different. But no, this movie can't do that because Tyler Perry can't be clever. just can't make anything clever. He has to make the same damn movie over and over and over again. But, yeah, it's... Even if it's not his movie in general, but he attaches himself to some pretty bad movies overall when you really think about it. Even his target audience stayed away from this one. They did not want to see this movie at all, and it clearly showed in the fact that this thing had a $15 million budget. It couldn't even make that back. It didn't even make it to $10 million. They only brought in $9.3 million over a $15 million budget. That should tell you right there that people did not give a fuck about this movie at all, so... Yeah, needless to say, a hard skip on Peoples.
You think your world is safe? It is not. Who the hell are you? I am better.
At what?
Everything. Shall we begin?
Welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. Once again, no intro this week because we're only looking at 2 movies, and we can be really quick on one of them in particular, but we got 2 films for May 17, 2013, and the summer movie season continues. You know, we had Iron Man 3 2 weeks ago, which was kind of a letdown, and then we had Star Trek Into Darkness this weekend, which... we'll talk about it. This is, of course, J.J. Abrams' second film in the Star Trek series. You know, the first one created this whole revolution for the franchise, you know, finding a way to bridge the gap between the mainstream audiences and the hardcore Trekkies. And it made that first film work a lot. Star Trek was an incredible action-adventure that was able to please both audiences with a good story, great recreation of the characters, and a solid action experience overall. And I still love the hell out of that movie. And hey, it's the movie that got J.J. Abrams Star Wars. Not before. It's just before this movie was coming out. They picked him to do Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and I think he did a pretty good job with that first film in general. But we'll save that for 2015. But what happened with Star Trek Into Darkness? Let's find out. When the crew of the Enterprise is called back home, they find an unstoppable force of terror from within their own organization has detonated the fleet and everything it stands for, leaving our world in a state of crisis. With a personal score to settle, Captain Kirk, once again played by Chris Pine, leads a manhunt to a war-zone world to capture a one-man weapon of mass destruction, John Harrison Khan. It's Khan. I mean, I don't think I need to spoil it for you, but yeah, they make it seem like that it's not really Khan, but it's Khan. But he's played by Benedict Cumberbatch, so that's pretty good. As our heroes are propelled into an epic chess game of life and death, love will be challenged, friendships will be torn apart, and sacrifices must be made for the only family Kirk has left, his crew. And let's just get it out of the way, this is not on the same level as the first Star Trek movie. And at the same time, it's not terrible. But it is definitely like Iron Man 3 in that the first 2 acts are really good. They're the strongest parts of the movie, but it's the third act where it completely falls apart. And just like how Iron Man 3's third act falls apart at the worst possible time, the ending of this movie is so goddamn ridiculous. The last action sequence of this should have been much more epic than it is. Except, what do? They rip off Wrath of Khan's ending by doing a role reversal of the famous Spock death scene, only this time it's Spock crying out Khan for the death of Kirk. I mean, Kirk dies, and you could do this well if there was a purpose to it, if we were getting something big building up to this, but no. It was just there just to make references to the 2 different scenes from Wrath of Khan that have no similarities to them whatsoever. And the film just has a chance to redeem itself. You got this really cool, badass fight scene between Spock and Khan running through the city, but then they decide to just stop it in the middle of nowhere. Just say, yeah, we captured Khan, and we need him to be alive, so we're not going to even bother try to kill him because the Tribble the Bones was working on using Khan's blood came back to life. And, like, this is one of the stupidest endings I have ever seen in my entire life, and it just completely ruins the experience of the movie. I was so pissed off with the last 5 minutes of this movie. It made no sense whatsoever, and there are a lot of plot holes that make no sense because of this. And, you know, for the people they had working on this, Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman, Damon Lindelof, who did so well with the last Star Trek movie, there is no excuse to put this many plot holes in the last 5 minutes. And it's the type of ending that completely destroys the enjoyment factor of the film. This takes a film that is good and just completely makes it into something where it's almost unbearable to watch. Like, I rarely have gone back to this movie because of that third act. And you know, Damon Lindelof, what is it with you and your raping a third act, man? I mean, I swear to God, this dude wrote so many bad third acts. It makes me wonder if a third act had killed his dog or raped his mother, because Cowboys and Aliens had that. Prometheus had that. Tomorrowland had that. I haven't gotten to Tomorrowland yet, but you get the idea. Tomorrowland kind of had that same thing. We'll see another one, World War Z, which is an awesome movie, but the third act, man, something about the third act really pisses off Damon Lindelof so goddamn much. Like, it's just... And if those were the only problems with this movie, that would be enough, but no, it keeps going, because for the love of God, can we stop it? Stop it with that stupid scene in the middle of the movie where the bad guy just decides to surrender for no particular reason and is caught, but then he breaks out because that's part of his plan of action, because good God, I am so sick and tired of this. It's the 4th time in 5 years that of watching movies that I've seen this happen. It happened in The Dark Knight, which is fine. You let that go because it's the Joker. Second time it happened in Avengers, and you know, it's just a coincidence, but it works because it was a lot of fun. It was cool to see that. It happened in Skyfall, and that was the point when I was starting to go, like, I like Skyfall a lot, but when Skyfall did that, it's just kind of like, come on, man, this has got to stop. And it's just like, they did the same thing again in this movie, and I would have screamed out, oh, fuck you, movie, because I would have done that, because it's an old cliche. Everyone knows what's going to happen when the bad guy surrenders with an hour left in the movie. Yeah, he's planning more shit. And I would have said that, but there were kids in the movie theater, and I didn't want to look like a psychopath. So, take that for what you will. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid. They need to stop using this because it's not creative anymore. All it is lazy writing, and it just proves that the writers weren't even paying attention to what the hell they were doing. And can we stop it with the constant references to the series that play no part of the story? This movie has so many references to other Star Trek movies and shows, and it's just another example of the lazy writing to please the fans of the series. It's nothing but fan service. But on top of that, Khan's not already a threat enough already. No, we need to add in another villain, because we need Peter Weller to have his biggest role since RoboCop. And I'm sorry, this is a terrible, terrible character. The only reason Weller is in this movie is probably because they want to do more fan service, because he was RoboCop and his characters get way too much screen time than he deserves in this. Like, count how many times that this guy seriously goes like, I want my war! Like, I swear to God, I could take a drink out right now to how many times this guy says this, and I would be plastered by the time this review is over. But with all of those things I have bad about the movie, I will be nice to it, because there is a lot I do like. I still think the action sequences are pretty cool. I think the fight scenes are nicely done. The opening scene mixes both classic film creatures and makeup with the CG elements of today. And, like, I love watching that. There's that scene with Spock in the volcano is a ton of fun. But every time I see Spock with that pose of him looking up in the air and, like, taking it all in, I just keep wanting to put Randy Marsh's quote line from South Park going, "It's beautiful!" Like, it literally looks like that whenever I see that image. But the character development is also one of the more promising things about the movie. We delve more into the relationships of the characters, and I want more of that. That's awesome. It's one of the strongest parts of the movie. The story overall is good. The pacing is also really good. For the first 2/3, it didn't feel like it was rushing itself or slowing down. It was at a nice pace. You can follow everything that was going on. Again, I like the twist on Cumberbatch's character. Like I already said, it was Khan, but kind of like with Iron Man 3, I like where the twist began. I just didn't like where it was going at that point, because again, like Iron Man 3, it had a good idea for a twist, but then they completely ruined it when they made it yet another guy in a suit as the bad guy, and Guy Pearce. Like, it was even worse than Jeff Bridges and Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 3. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing here. I mean, it starts off promisingly, but then they can't stick the landing in the end. And J.J. Abrams is a good director. Up to this point, there had not been one bad movie that I've seen of his that he directed. And even since then, there hasn't been a bad film overall that he's directed. I mean, yeah, Rise of Skywalker is not a great movie, but I will still take the Star Wars sequel trilogy over those stupid prequels any day of the week. Suck it, Star Wars haters. Suck it, Star Wars. Suck it, Disney haters. I'm sorry. But this is the first one I really came out of it going like, man, this one could have been really, really great, and it just completely fucked itself over with that third act. You know, for a follow-up to an incredible return of Star Trek, we need to expand the storyline here. I mean, for a summer action film, it's fun, But that's all it is. The faults of this movie are widely out in the open, and it did overall ruin the enjoyment of the film for me. I wanted so much more from it, and I didn't get that in general here. But luckily, the next Star Trek film that does come out, which does not have J.J. Abrams directing it, he's producing it, but he's, of course, working on Force Awakens, Star Trek Beyond took it back to where it should have been with the last film. I actually really like what they did with Star Trek Beyond, but we'll touch on that in 2016. But for this one, a very mixed bag of a movie. Lots of stuff I liked about it, but the stuff I hated really ruined my enjoyment of the film. So, mixed opinion on Star Trek Into Darkness. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Greta Gerwig working with Noah Baumbach again on Frances Ha.
So if you come with me, where? Nothing. Really? We're still doing this? Sometimes it's good to do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it.
I mean, let's be honest. Any movie that has David Bowie's Modern Love playing in the background is always going to make you want to see it. And this was actually one of the first collaborations with Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig. I mean, the two worked together on Greenberg when Greta Gerwig starred in that movie, but this is a movie they both wrote and Baumbach directed it. And, of course, later on they would go on to work on these other projects, specifically, more recently, of course, Barbie, which became the big hit that it was. So in this movie, you have the story of Frances, played by Gerwig, who lives in New York, but she doesn't really have an apartment. She's an apprentice for a dance company, but she's not really a dancer. She has a best friend named Sophie, but they aren't really speaking anymore. She throws herself headlong into her dreams, even as the possible reality dwindles. You know, she wants so much more than she has, but lives her life with unacceptable joy and lightness. Pretty much what most people around that age bracket usually do. Let's be honest. The world is once you get to your 30s, you realize that your hopes and dreams really are not as clear and obvious that you can get them out there. I mean, you get what I'm trying to talk about here, but this is a really good movie. It's a very underrated Greta Gerwig film that she did with Noah Baumbach, and Baumbach overall is a really solid director who's not made a lot of bad movies. I think the worst thing he's ever directed, if I remember correctly, was probably, what was it? I didn't see White Noise. I saw Marriage Story. Marriage Story was good. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember which one it was, but it's probably Greenberg, because Greenberg I thought was just okay, nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but you know, this is a chance for Greta Gerwig to show everybody that she has the capabilities of being a solid leading actress as a whole, and what she can do as a filmmaker as a whole, because she wrote the script for this, and of course she later went on to direct a couple of big movies, of course Barbie I mentioned earlier, but as far as this film goes, it's a good movie. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but a real good showcase for Greta Gerwig's leading potential overall, and it just works very well with her in the lead here. Excuse me. I don't know where that came from, but you also got Adam Driver in here, who was just coming on with Girls coming out at the same time, but yeah, he shows up in this movie. Grace Gumner as well. Good cast overall here. Good entertainment value overall. It's a fun little movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, especially if you've seen Barbie and also Little Women and also something bird, Lady Bird? I'm thinking it's Lady Bird. Lady Bird, yeah. If you want to see those, if you've seen those movies, this is definitely worth checking out to see some of her early works as a writer in general. I think it works pretty well. So like I said, I recommend Frances Ha.
Let's go for a little ride. I'll make it simple for you. Show me how you drive, I'll show you who you are.
To a whole new level. Rated PG-13, starts May 24th.
Welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. Today we are taking a look at the 4 films that make up May 24, 2013. And we're starting off with the biggest new release of the weekend. That is, of course, Fast and Furious 6. This is, of course, the film that follows Fast 5. And since Dom and Brian's Rio heist topped the Kingpin's empire and left their crew with $100 million, our heroes have scattered across the globe. But their inability to return home and living forever on the lam have left their lives incomplete. Meanwhile, Hobbs, once again played by Dwayne Johnson, has been tracking an organization of lethally skilled mercenary drivers across 12 countries, whose mastermind, Luke Evans, is aided by a ruthless second-in-command revealed to be the love Dom thought was dead, Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah, this is where some of the stupidity comes into play here, because everyone thought Letty was dead after Fast and Furious, and then turns out, nope, she's still alive, and it's been prepared for this, because this is going to be the trend for the next several movies. People you think are dead, they're not really dead. It's just a soap opera for guys, pretty much, with this series. But the only way to stop this criminal outfit is to outmatch them at street level. So Hobbs asks Dom to assemble his elite team in London. Payment, full pardons for all of them so they can return home and make their families whole again. And by the way, here's another thing that we're going to be seeing in these Fast and Furious movies. The villain from the last movie all of a sudden starts working for the bad guys. I mean, it happens in this movie, and then when Jason Statham comes into the picture, turns out he works with the heroes in the next film. But despite all this, this Fast and Furious movie was pretty fun. I mean, I like what they've done since Fast and Furious in 2009. Fast 5 was great. This one was just a ton of fun overall. It's a fun summer blockbuster type movie. We can let the stupidity slide for this one because, yeah, this one knows exactly what it's doing. This isn't doing what Iron Man 3 or Star Trek Into Darkness did, just starting off strong and then just completely falling apart at the end on a really sour note. This movie is fun all across the board. I mean, after a slow start to the summer, this is the type of movie you want the summer to start off with. You got the cast once again working off each other very well. Of course, this is the last time we see Paul Walker and Vin Diesel when Paul Walker is alive, because of course he would die later on in the year. And yeah, it's just fun watching them work off each other here. The action sequences are a lot of fun to watch. The final climax with the cars taking down this gigantic airplane. I mean, good lord. When you see this airplane, it's so huge. You have to think that you would think it's AI or something like that, because there's no way that could be real in real life. But apparently it is. But yeah, you never would be able to thought they would top the bank vault sequence from the last movie. But lo and behold, they might have just done that. And yeah, even the bit where they're driving the tank across the freeway, I love that scene, but I couldn't help but wonder, 30 people probably died during that whole thing. And I don't know, usually during chases in movies, you don't think about that, but that's one of those ones where it's just like, I'm watching it, I'm loving it, but I'm thinking to myself, man, how many people are dead because of this? Because you literally see this thing hitting cars and people on the street. Just like, there's no way there isn't a huge death count on this, but there is some problems with the film as well. One of my biggest cliches that I absolutely fucking hate, and I still hate, the double crosser. We have a character who was not given any indication that she's a double crosser and working for the bad guy, but then all of a sudden, sure enough, oh, this person's working for the bad guy. It's just like, there's never any indication that they were working with them at all. It's a completely useless plot device. I'm so sick and tired of it. It's been like this ever since, X-Men for a long time, but I've noticed it starting more recently with X-Men First Class. There's this scene where, Zoe Kravitz's character suddenly decides to join the bad guys for no particular reason. I hate that, because if you're going to be a double crosser, make it more convincing and don't give us this BS where you just pull out of your ass the last minute. I mean, one of the best examples of this is when you see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with Ray Winstone, I think. Yeah, Ray Winstone. He's always like, I'm working for you, Indy. No, I'm working for the bad guy. No, I'm working for you again, Indy. Now I'm working for the bad guy. And Indiana Jones is just like, you're working. Is you're double crossing us again? It's like, no, I just lied to you the last time around so I can get me closer to what we need to get to. It's just like, they at least knew how to use that cliche to make it funny and clever, and it actually does work. And that's one of the things I really like about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, among other things. But also, I kind of had a problem with the film kind of ending on a teaser for the next movie. I mean, as I mentioned, Jason Statham is the villain in the next movie, but we get this great moment where we think the movie's going to come to an end, it's ending on a positive note, but then all of a sudden, Han's going to Tokyo and then gets killed by Jason Statham, the villain, setting it up for the next movie, and it's just kind of like, I mean, my problem is that there's hardly any time to breathe between the last scene of the movie and the stinger in the credits. Like, it just cuts to the next scene. It's just kind of like, you know, a tonal shift that just makes no sense whatsoever. And I know we're in the summer of darker installments in series, but this is kind of getting ridiculous for its own good. But nevertheless, in a month that has included such lackluster films like Iron Man 3 and Star Trek Into Darkness, Fast and Furious 6 definitely is the bright spot of this really lackluster month of movies. I mean, this is a really fun movie that delivers everything it promises and then some. There's a lot of things I like about it than bad stuff. It's got flaws. It's over the top for its own. It's a little too much for its own good, but it's still so much fun overall. It's a perfect summer blockbuster escapism film that doesn't stop, and you get hooked onto the ride until the very end. It's a great movie, man. I love the hell out of it, and it only gets better from there with Furious 7. And Furious 7 really is where they should have ended it, but of course they didn't do that. So we'll touch on that in about 2 years' time. But Fast and Furious 6, good film. Really, really good film. And now we have come to a sequel I've talked about in great length, a movie that was, if you want to talk about one of the most pointless trilogies of all time, look no further than the next sequel that we have that came out this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, Hangover Part 3.
My God, he's got the voice of an angel. It's breathtaking.
You ready to do this?
Yeah. Wait, what are we doing? Are you out of your mind? This is the worst place on earth. I know, right? So many good memories.
I bought a giraffe! Oh, my life is great!
Rated R. Starts May 24th.
It's not a good sign if the best stuff they're showing you is in the trailer. The giraffe scene is the best scene in the movie. Alan singing Ave Maria. That's good. Everything else, piece of shit. In the aftermath of the death of Alan's father, the Wolfpack, Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms, Justin Bartha, decide to take Alan to get treated for his mental issues. But things start to go wrong on the way to the hospital when the Wolfpack is assaulted and Doug is kidnapped, and now they must kidnap Mr. Chow again in order to surrender him to the gangster who kidnapped Doug in order to save him. So, we're already ripping off the first movie again. I'm just not going to get right to the point of this. I hated this movie. I hated it when it came out. I tried to give it a chance years later. It has not changed. I fucking loathe this movie. This is one of the worst sequels, if not the worst sequel I have ever seen in my entire fucking life. It is that awful. This movie is so horrible. It completely takes everything you love about The Hangover and just throw it away and keeps the horrible things I hated about The Hangover and manages to make it an even worse movie-going experience. This is one of the most horrible movie-going experiences I ever had in my entire life. Where do you start? Well, yeah, don't let those trailers fool you. This isn't the lighthearted, goofy hangover films like the last two films. No, they take this pointless, dark edge to this that had no reason to be there. There's no reason for a hangover movie to be this dark. I mean, the first two movies had dark humor in them, but the scripts were smart enough to not let the dark humor take up the entire film. But here, they just go dark for no reason whatsoever. And I love a dark comedy. War of the Roses is one of the great dark comedies you'll ever see, but if you're gonna go all on a dark comedy, let people know and don't gloss over it in the trailers and then just bring them in there for this incredibly bizarre tonal shift that happens. The story makes no sense at all. Why does Doug need to be kidnapped again? There's no reason why we have to turn to Black Doug. They turned Black Doug, Mike Epps from the first movie, into a bad guy. For no reason. There's no reason why the characters for the first movie have to return. There was no thought process when this movie was made. Part 2 at least was trying to be a movie that was at least worthy of existence. Even though it was a Here We Go Again sequel. Like, this movie... This is the movie that you look at and you realize they made this because Warner Brothers wanted a sequel. That's what they wanted. They wanted the money. They don't care if the trilogy, if the movie's actually good. We need that trilogy money. And I really believe there was no intention to make this a franchise and spawn 2 mid-range sequels. I mean, the second movie was a copy and paste version of the first film. That's enough to back the point right there. But to do a third movie that tries to make you forget about the previous films and what they established, this makes my theory more than just a theory. It's concrete evidence. They had no intentions on making this a franchise, and they should have just made it the first movie and be done with it. Think about it. Why didn't we not get any sequels to Wedding Crashers, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Old School, Knocked Up, Forgetting Sarah Marshall? Why are they so great? Because they never had sequels. Yeah, Knocked Up and Forgetting Sarah Marshall had some of my sequels, but I don't count those because those aren't really official sequels. Most of these movies are on the level of the first Hangover movie, and they know that a sequel would probably do nothing but make us forget about these movies. So why can't The Hangover just follow in those footsteps, I should say? I'm sick and tired of Zach Galifianakis' character Alan in this. I'm sorry. Zach Galifianakis can be funny, but I'm sorry. This character is one of the worst characters I have ever seen in my entire life, because his progression from the first movie to the second movie to the third movie keeps getting worse and worse and worse with every passing film. And this film definitely is the bottom of the barrel. I went from liking this character in the first movie to hating him because he's so stupid. He's so childish. He's just a dick. And he does not get any better as these movies go on. He keeps getting worse. One of the worst things about The Hangover Part 2 was that Alan revealed he drugged everybody because Teddy's not part of our wolf pack. It's just like at that point, this character became detestable to me because in one scene, it proved to me that this character is nothing more but a selfish idiot. And in Part 3, they get in trouble because, guess what? Alan's the one who's responsible for this because Alan keeps hanging out with Mr. Chow, and that's why they're in the situation they're in. Any sane person would have taken Alan in the back behind the woodshed and killed him off of Mice and Men style, like what Lenny did to, what's his name? I can't remember his name. I got the names mixed up. What George did to Lenny, like they should have just taken Alan back behind the woodshed and just shoot him in the back of the head. That's how much I hate this guy so much. But no, we can't do that because they got to continue this mission because he's the fat, goofy, funny guy, and it's like, well, it's not a big deal at all. The comedy here is so terrible. The biggest cock tease of this movie, and what could have saved the movie for a little bit, is that giraffe in the car scene. Now, like I said, that's the funniest scene in the trailer, and they don't show you the climax of that because, you know, it's a trailer for the movie. It's a trailer for the movie. They want you to see the movie to see the joke and pay off. You know, they had the potential to have that be the best scene in the movie, and it happens way early in the film. And let me tell you something. You know how that joke plays in the trailer? That's how it plays in the movie. Yeah, you don't see the payoff at all. And that made me so mad as hell. I almost walked out because I didn't get that payoff. And look, I get it. Visual effects have come a long way, but don't tell me with a budget of $103 million this movie. They spent $103 million on this one movie. For what? What did they use this on? Like, where did all that money go? You can't make a special effect where we see the giraffe's head come off. There's no money shot. There's no blood. There's no payoff whatsoever. And the whole scene is shot horribly. And to make matters worse, you got Hansen's Mbop playing in the background. It's just like, and again, before you call me cruel, I'm 100% against animal abuse, but come on. You have an R-rated comedy to hype the scene up and to not give us that payoff. That is a big fuck you to the filmmakers themselves who knew that you coughed up $12 to see the movie and you didn't get exactly what you wanted from it. They waste John Goodman, too. John Goodman's a great actor, but I'm sorry. Him as the main villain in here, he's completely wasted. He serves no purpose to the plot whatsoever. He's in 3 scenes of this movie. He's supposed to be the main bad guy. And they just waste so many... These movies waste so many talented people in here and make them completely pointless characters. Even in the second movie. Remember, they were supposed to have a scene with Liam Neeson that was eventually going to be replaced by Bill Clinton and then replaced by Nick Cassavetes. Why? Because they're recognizable names. Who cares what if we have a character to build around them? Fuck you. That's what the movie's basically telling you is fuck you. And it's amazing. The one thing that made this movie somewhat redeemable was, of all things, Melissa McCarthy. You know, after watching her being the ultimate bitch in Identity Thief, being basically the equivalent of Zach Galifianakis in the Hangover movies, she was providing the only funny moments in the film. Like, it's finally good to see somebody using her talents to good use, and she provided the funniest moments of the film. Granted, it's 5 minutes, but at this point, I'll take anything at this point. This is a new low for sequels. The Hangover Part 3 took what made the first 2 movies good and just rapes it and gives it one of the most unpleasant film-going experiences I've had in a long, long time. This is, without a doubt, one of the worst movies I've seen all year. It's worse than Little Fockers. It's worse than Big Mama's Like Father, Like Son. That's the bar we're at, people. You have to suck really hard to top big mamas like Father, Like Son, and horribleness. That's how bad this movie is. Avoid The Hangover Part 3 like the plague, and I swear to God, if somebody out there tries to make a Hangover 4, I may just lose my faith in Hollywood, because we're getting a Rush Hour 4 because of our president, so, yeah. Because clearly the demand was there for Rush Hour 4, apparently, from anybody that's not outside the White House, but, yeah, that's a whole other thing altogether, but you get the idea. Hangover Part 3 sucks. It's one of the worst movies of the year, one of the worst comedies I've ever seen, one of the worst sequels of all time. I think you get the point. So, yeah, let's go ahead and try to turn this around, and we won't do it with this next one, I know for sure. Let's take a look at Blue Sky Studios' latest film, Epic.
On May 24th,
You know how important today is.
Are you ready for this?
expect something epic.
That's the show.
That's the spirit. Whoa!
We're outnumbered, out of time, and the fate of the world is at stake. Awesome.
Epic. Rated PG. May 24th.
Yeah, there ain't anything epic about this movie and all. In fact, it's not a good sign if your trailer is literally showing the way the bad guy dies in this. I mean, you literally see how Christoph Waltz's character dies in this movie. So yeah, that is not a good sign for this film going forward. But this is Epic, which I did not know was based off of a William Joyce story. But, of course, William Joyce was also the same man that gave us Roly Poly Oly. But more importantly, more recently, he gave us Rise of the Guardians, which is a far superior movie than this pile of garbage is. So in this movie, you have young Mary Catherine Gallagher. No, not really Mary Catherine Gallagher. Now, that would have been interesting if the character from Saturday Night Live was the lead in this. But no, this is young Mary Catherine, played by Amanda Seyfried, who returns to her eccentric scientist father's home, but his all-consuming quest to discover a tiny civilization in the neighboring forest drives them apart. However, MK Sue finds herself shrunken down by Queen Tara, played by Beyonce Knowles of the Forest, mortally wounded by the putrefying Buggins, and charged to deliver a pod bearing the new queen to safety, together with a veteran Leafman warrior played by Colin Farrell, two goofy mollusks played by Aziz Ansari and Crystal Dowd, and a young maverick played by Josh Hutcherson. MK agrees to help as the villainous Boggin leader, Mandrake, played by Christoph Waltz, closes in. MK and her new friends must draw on the best of themselves together and discovers what they have to save the world. And yeah, this was a movie that is, as I said before, it's Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest. It's Once Upon a Forest. It's Avatar. All Fox movies like this is, and seriously, Fox, what was your obsession with forest protection movies? I think Avatar was the final nail in the coffin, but lo and behold, we have this right here. Like, I mean, is the movie worth watching? And it really is not. It's a boring film, and it doesn't work because the story. We have seen this story done to death before, and there's nothing new about this whatsoever. So what's the purpose of doing the same movie as Fern Gully and Avatar and Once Upon a Forest and not doing anything unique or different with it at all? The only way this thing could work is that this will lead to the things I like about the movie, is that they can create this visually beautiful universe that the book carries, and that's one of the strongest points of the movie, is the visuals. They look amazing. They actually look cool with the 3D, and it's up there with Rio with some of their best work overall. But again, visuals don't make the movie. Like I said, I've always said, but I thought the voice cast overall was kind of good. I mean, they do feel like they were kind of forced in there because of their status, like the additions of Steven Tyler as the Keeper of the Magic Scrolls, Pitbull as a hitman. Like, even though I thought actually he was one of the things that actually was really one of the stronger parts of it, but like, Steven Tyler as Nim Galoo does not really fit that character he plays. Crystal Dowd and Aziz Ansari, they provide some good comic relief moments. Beyonce Knowles, not bad as the Queen. I mean, it's great to see to finally get a kiss movie that doesn't portray a Queen as the main villain. And the rest of the cast is okay. Amanda Seyfried's alright. Colin Farrell, Josh Hutcherson, they're okay. Christoph Waltz, although I'm getting sick and tired of him playing the villain in every single movie, I thought Jason Sudeikis was pretty good. One of the more memorable characters in the movie was, of all things, MK's three-legged dog in this movie. Like, I don't know why, but he doesn't speak, but just everything he does in this movie made me laugh. It's a silly character, but it's one of the more memorable parts of the film, I think mostly because it's a three-legged dog. I mean, that's probably the one thing I took away from it, but other complaints I have with it, the music was kind of bland. This is Danny Elfman doing this, and Danny Elfman doesn't usually do bland music like this, but my god, this felt the most generic and uninspired I've ever seen from Danny Elfman. This feels like he was coasting along here. And I also don't like that it goes back to, oh, the mother is dead again, because how many times have we had a movie like this where the mother is dead? The only difference is we only have one movie in recent years that has been the complete opposite, where it's the mother who's alive, but the dad is dead, and that's The Princess and the Frog. And that was a much better movie than this, but I guess I could say for this movie, it's not terrible, but for a movie that's called epic, there ain't nothing epic about it, man. I mean, it's at least a better movie from Blue Sky than the last Ice Age movie was, and that was terrible. There was at least a couple things I kind of enjoyed about it, but again, it's not one of their better movies overall, and it definitely was part of a streak of lackluster films in general from them. I mean, we haven't even gotten back to when they went the sequel route again with their next movie, Rio 2, which took a beautiful, fun movie of the first film and just took it down a lackluster pathway. We'll touch on that in April 2014, but as far as this film goes, it's okay, but it's not great either. It's a movie that is instantly forgotten. In fact, I rarely have ever watched it again since it came out 12 years ago. So that should probably tell you something right there. So that is epic. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here. Probably the overall best movie of the entire week, easily. And it's a sequel of all things. It's Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy in the third installment of the Before trilogy, Before Midnight.
It's the last time.
We had nowhere we had to be.
Yeah. If we're meeting for the first time today on a train, would you ask me to get off the train with you?
Of course.
It's not the love of one other person that matters, it's the love of life.
Why am I finding myself so attracted to this woman?
Kind of an abrupt end to that trailer. I think that was a fan trailer, even though it was technically on a Sony Pictures UK page, so I don't know what was going on there, but this is Before Midnight, the third installment of the Before Sunrise trilogy that began 18 years ago with Before Sunrise, and then 9 years ago, and then 9 years after that we had Before Sunset, and now 9 years after that we have this one here. And in this one, you have, once again, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy's character of Jesse and Celine spending a summer vacation together in Greece. And, you know, these movies keep getting better and better as the films go along. And I've touched on these movies before with Before Sunrise and Before Sunset. What I like about these movies is that they're very much dialogue-heavy movies, which could usually backfire, but because Richard Linklater is such a good director, and you just love seeing these two characters, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, together again, it just works very well. These movies are kind of very similar to something like My Dinner with Andre. It's a movie where you don't think two people just talking throughout the course of the movie is going to be intriguing or not, but the conversations they have are very fascinating. You do really believe that these two know what they're doing, and they know that they want to hear more about what the other person has to say about another. And again, it works very well here. They both work off each other very well here, and that's the key to these movies, to make such an entertaining, enjoyable romantic dramedy trilogy that is their chemistry and their relationship, which seems very realistic, very authentic, and feels like what a real life couple would talk about in real life. Like, you know, we've had a lot of great romantic couples in the last couple of years. You know, Pat and Tiffany in Silver Linings Playbook, you know, Gil and Adriana in Midnight in Paris, and these two are just so great to watch, them just talking and doing stuff, and it really just keeps you invested in these two characters all throughout the course of their film overall. Like, you know, in terms of picking the best overall film in these, it's tough to say, because I do think each one gets better and better as we go along. This one's probably my favorite one, because we're now seeing the two leads as part of a family. They've got kids. Now we see them deal with family issues, you know. Like how the first two films managed to not resort to the stupid cliches and rom-coms, this one manages to provide us with a realistic look at how a couple struggles to maintain staying happy after all these years, now with these kids in their lives. And I like the fact that the film doesn't steer away from the simple happy ending. It does a little bit, but it feels genuine. It doesn't feel fake. It feels real. It feels authentic. And that's the great thing about what Richard Linklater does with these movies, because you can tell he knows what he's doing. He's not going to make a movie like this so it could just be another typical rom-com sequel. He's going to put as much effort into it as you expect him to do, and the result is always going to pay off, and it does work with these films overall. This is a really great trilogy of films. Each one gets better and better as they go along. These are great films. I can't recommend these films enough. If you have not seen the Before trilogy, see these films. See Before Sunrise, see Before Sunset. See Before Midnight. These are three classic films. One of Richard Linklater is some of the best films Richard Linklater has ever done, period. I can't recommend it enough. Before Midnight, definitely check this one out.
Everyone in this room was a victim of hard times.
And so tonight,
we're going to return some money back to you.
Can you explain to me how you robbed a bank 5,000 miles away?
Magic.
I'm gonna nail you.
First rule of magic, always be the smartest guy in the room.
The bank was the distraction. What's about to follow is really going to amaze.
Now you see me.
It's locked.
Nothing's ever locked.
Rated PG-13, May 31st.
God, I really do not like these movies. Welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. Today we are taking a look at the two films that wrap up May 2013, May 31st to be exact. Neither one of them are very good, and we're starting off with our first movie here, the biggest of the two, Now You See Me, which is timely because the third installment of this series has come out, and yeah, still not convinced of anything good coming out of this series in general. The premise of this is that you have an FBI agent played by Mark Ruffalo and an Interpol detective who track and attempt to bring down to justice a team of magicians played by Jesse Eisenberg, Isla Fisher, and Woody Harrelson who pull off bank heists and robberies during their performances and reward the audiences with the money. Now, here's the thing. The idea is pretty cool. A heist movie set around magicians. I mean, there's a lot of fun ideas you could have with it. There's a fun concept that you could have with this. And this movie sort of kind of has that. Until it doesn't. And then the movie that follows is just kind of bland and boring and pretty forgettable. And even the attempts of action that they try to do here don't really pay off all that well in general here. They take a concept that should be really, really good and really, really clever and just kind of play it straight. They don't do anything too shocking or groundbreaking. Even the tricks they do are really not that amazing because they've been done to death before in so many other movies and shows. And you look at it just kind of like, where's the problems with this? Why is this not working for me? And really, the best way I think I could describe it is that, it's like I said, we've seen the story done before so many times. They take a concept that should be clever and unique and stand out on its own, but it just falls into a bland, generic heist movie. You've got a guy that's supposed to be a bad guy, is supposed to be the antagonist of the movie. You got these characters that we've seen in the Ocean's movies, done much better. All played by good actors. There's a strong cast in this movie. I mean, you know, Eisenberg, Ruffalo, Harrelson, Isla Fisher, Dave Franco, Common, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Melanie Laurent. I mean, there is a good cast here. There's a good director, Louis Leterrier, who did The Incredible Hulk, the 2008 movie. But it just doesn't work because it just falls into the same type of movie we've seen done before so many times before. These characters are not interesting whatsoever. And after 3 movies, when you see these characters be nothing unique or different, they just keep being the same, but they're the same people that they've always been. Snarky, they think they're better than everybody else, but there's nothing about them that really makes them stand out or do anything special. And that's really the biggest thing in the movie, is that it's nothing amazing that really takes what should be a spot-on, really cool concept that should be an all-around winner, and just leads into a movie that you're watching and going like, come on, just get along with it already. And the ending they do here also is a major flaw too, because it's just like, you're setting this whole thing up and that's how you're going to set it up with? Like, it just didn't work with me with this movie. And none of these movies really wowed me. I mean, I don't know why so many people get hooked on these films, but I just don't get it, man. There's the same type of, there's been better movies with this same concept, done so much better. You know, there's some of the people that are in here have been in movies like that. Michael Caine was in a great magician movie that played with your expectations in The Prestige. That's a great movie. This is a boring ass movie with characters that you don't have any sympathy for. You don't want to get attached to them at all because they're kind of obnoxious douchebags. And you just expect so much more from this film, and it just isn't there. And I was really let down by it when I first saw it. And I thought maybe the sequels would up the ante a little bit here, but neither one of them ever did that. This is a major, major misfire that I don't really get why they make sequels to this. I mean, this is up there with Fantastic Beasts for one of the most pointless trilogies I have ever seen in my entire life, where even the first film isn't that good to begin with. Like, The Hangover at least had one good movie out of that 3 films that they did. This and that Fantastic Beasts do not, and We'll get to Fantastic Beasts eventually in 2016, just like we will with Now You See Me 2, but yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie. Not a fan at all. But then again, I'm not a fan of our last movie that we have here. The pairing of M. Night Shyamalan and Will Smith that clearly nobody was asking for, but Sony said, well, fuck it, you're getting it anyway. After Earth.
Crash landed. Only the reverse of everything on this planet has evolved. Suit up. Take my cutlass.
Dive in for one of the biggest adventures of the summer.
That's it.
After Earth, rated PG-13.
The bottom of the barrel for M. Night Shyamalan. And I know The Last Airbender and The Happening were terrible, but this literally was his bottom before he would eventually rise back up in a couple of years with The Visit. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back for his first stretch run here, starting with The Sixth Sense, and now this is the end result of that. After Earth is based on an idea by Will Smith about a father and son trip in the wilderness before it's eventually reworked into a sci-fi setting, taking place 1,000 years in the future where humans evacuate Earth to another planet due to a massive environmental catastrophe. The film follows father and son Cypher and Qatar Rage. That should already tell you everything you need to know about how pretentious this movie is. Who find themselves crash landing on the abandoned Earth. When Cypher gets injured from the crash, Qatar must travel across the wild environment in search of a backup beacon to fire a distress signal, while having to defend himself from the highly evolved animals, as well as an extraterrestrial creature that will detect its prey by smelling fear. Last Airbender is bad. It's the worst thing M. Night Shyamalan has ever done, but this clearly is the second worst thing he's ever done. I mean, this is strictly on M. Night Shyamalan. You know, despite Shyamalan directing this, it's him and Will Smith, because Will Smith is the one who wrote the story for this. He made this a starring vehicle for his son, Jaden Smith, and this was the end of his brief career after The Karate Kid and The Pursuit of Happiness, because, yeah, nobody wanted to work with him after this movie anymore. They wanted to make this a trilogy, but this thing is a cinematic wasteland of nothingness. Nothing is happening in this movie. Nothing worthy. Nothing that, kind of like Now You See Me, nothing that you haven't seen done before. The future aspects of it are so generic and so boring that you cannot believe. Sony looked at this and said, sounds good, keep it going. It's just like, no, there's nothing there. It's a boring movie because none of your two leads are not interesting. The story is not intriguing whatsoever. The dad's kind of a douchebag to his son, and the son's not helping being a likable character either. He sucks. You hate everybody in this movie. You hate the scenarios that they're in. The world that they go to here looks like the most blandish, generic-ass future post-apocalyptic world you've ever seen. The CG looks terrible. The film just is a cinematic wasteland of nothingness. That's the best way to describe it. I don't think I got much more to say about this one. After Earth is a massive, massive failure. It killed Jaden Smith's career. It killed Will Smith for a little bit, and it killed M. Night Shyamalan for a little bit before a guy named Jason Blum came 2 years later and said, "Come with me, Mr. Shyamalan. We'll get your career back on track." And all a good time. All a good time. We'll get to that one. But yeah, that's all I got to say about After Earth. Yeah, one good week out of 5 really bad weeks. That logic actually doesn't make sense. One good week out of 5 weeks this summer so far, and yeah, the previous weekend, the Memorial Day weekend, was probably the best one because we had more than one good movie. Yeah, we're not off to a good start for the summer of 2013, but